I will start with Professor Bonoli and the presentation first. And today we're talking about architecture and civil engineering in urban agriculture, useful for your project of the Urban Farm Student Challenge. Professor Bonoli, the floor is yours. If you can give a short presentation about yourself, then you have from 15 to 20 minutes for your presentation. All questions will be asked at the end of both presentations then.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. I'm Alessandra Bonoli at the University of Bologna. I'm an engineer and my research topics are related to, let's say, sustainability, circular economy, raw material and secondary raw material, and in urban green technologies as support for urban resilience. Thank you very much for your kind invitation. I'm really glad to be here. And now I would like to present just a very short overview in green technologies and how they can support the so-called urban resilience, and in particular in relation with water management at urban level and in relation with the heat island effect that involves our cities. Few keywords for you: urban resilience and urban green technologies, in particular in relation with water management, environmental sustainability, and heat island effect issues. We have to put attention to urban vulnerability because during the last decades, a robust urbanization occurred over the world. That means an increasing in environmental problems, mainly in water management. That means an increasing of the water surface flow and the risk of related storm runoff. The second point is the overheating of urban areas and the heat island effect. Then for sure other issues such as energy consumption, the pollution, biodiversity reduction, soil scarcity, and so on. The term, the word resilience is typically understood to describe, for instance, a material's ability to spring back into the previous shape after, for instance, being compressed. The term resilience is used also in ecology as the capacity of an ecosystem to tolerate disturbance without collapsing, into different state, and also in a human social system, quite the same meaning. That means the capacity of humans to be able to adapt for any kind of issues. And the word resilience is applied also at the city level. In fact, they define a resilient city as a city that has developed capacities to help absorb future shocks and stresses to its social, economic, technical system and infrastructure, and able to maintain substantially the same functions, structures, system, and identity. We can say that at urban level we can define resilience as the capacity both in terms of social issues, environmental issues, and several other topics related to the let's say management and policy at urban level to be able to adapt itself to the new conditions. And the new conditions are related to climate change challenges we are in front of. Climate change, that means also together other issues. Not only the global warming we are experimenting during our common life in the last years, but also in relation with the high level in pollutants in the air, and in particular talking about water, the fresh water availability per capita that is reducing each year more and more in relation with climate change. And the scarcity of water, mainly in the next future, is strictly related to the population growth in the world. So we have to put attention to water resources and in which way we are able to manage water at the city level. Also because desertification, once again related to climate change, that is affecting several areas in the world and also south of Europe. And talking about desertification, another strictly relationship between desertification and global warming and heat island effect. Dense cities are characterized by high thermal conductivity buildings and crossed by paved roads, large waterproof areas, and that means that our cities accumulate a large amount of thermal energy that cannot be dissipated, for instance, during the night. And that effect increases the temperature differences between urban and surrounding rural. Here you have a thermo camera photo image that represent the situation, just to talk about one big city as London, and the differences between the surrounding areas, the green and dark green representing the low temperature areas, while the orange, red and dark red represents the high temperature areas. And also inside an urban area, we can see different temperature between for instance, downtown, where just building and let's say roads and so on are present, differences between this area and a park or a garden where we can consider lower temperatures. Talking about water management, in the green areas, the common behavior, considering 100 of the total amount of rainfall water, more or less you have a 50% that is representing the percentage that is able to infiltrate in the soil, while just 10% represents the amount that run off. At the contrary, in a common city area condition, where the so-called gray surface are present, the percentage are the opposite. So you have not more than 15% that is infiltrating and more than 50% that run off. And that could be that represents a risk for the urban area in relation with the surface runoff, risk for for the water management at urban level, in particular during the so concentrated rainfall and stormy rainfall events. So we are able to consider some solutions by applying several kinds of urban green technologies that represents a possibility to face the risk related to, in particular, water management and the heat island effect. Talking about green infrastructures, green technologies, we can consider several, let's say, technologies and practices that reproduce natural processes by using natural or engineering system. Here you have several examples, such as green roofs, such as green and permeable pavement for parking, for instance, or for other urban pavement, phytodepuration for wastewater treatment, green walls and green facades. Yes, green roofs are technological element over our building, green walls and green facades, infiltration areas, parking, and also, why not, urban horticulture that represent another solution together with the green roof over a building. And green roof, just to look some photos, is a long story, starting from the mythos of Babylonia gardens many centuries before Christ. Here you have a picture of the mythological garden of Babylonia that represent the best kind of quality of life. But jumping to the history, here you have the Mausoleo di Augusto in Rome that is actually now present, having several layers of roofs and gardens. During the Italian Renaissance, several so beautiful buildings were built by using garden at several level of the building. But jumping to other countries, I really like this example. They also now they build some factories and some houses in relation the same architectural solution they used in the past, where you can see the house, because of the presence of the soil and the green surface. That solution represents an effective way to reduce thermal, to implement thermal condition inside the house. And also here some picture related to an house in Iceland by a famous architect. And just to joke, in Norway, that the picture were over the roof several trees, not so effective maybe. In Spain, some solution to reduce the heat inside the house, to preserve a high hot condition during summertime. And generally speaking, in relation with the thermal insulation, we assume to be an excellent solution for our buildings, both during winter time or summertime, to reduce heating and cooling. Several examples. Here you have California Science Academy with so beautiful green roofs, having different shapes, or jumping to the Netherlands, in Delft, the university library that represents a so large garden also for students. And here the Confederation of Indian Business Center in Kondapur, Hyderabad, where they put together several solutions, not only the green roofs, but also together the photovoltaics panel and the possibility to collect rainfall water, to storage water that can be used for several purposes. Other example of modern architecture solutions, both in USA or in France. And in relation to the two topics, I suggest you to consider, for instance, the rainfall water management and the infiltration and the surface runoff. I already mentioned some infiltration areas, and that represents an excellent technology to guarantee the infiltration in the ground, and that is really effective also to recharge the groundwater system. Talking about the heat island effect, we can see here a comparison between a common gray roof, just having on the surface a waterproof membrane, and at the contrary you have here the green roof. And in terms of temperature, according with that picture in the right hand, you can see also by yourself that on the gray roof really high temperature is reached, while over the green roof the lowest one level in temperature is registered. Summarizing stormwater runoff, the microclimate of our buildings, and also at urban scale, urban green technologies can give a really effective contribution, but also in terms of energy consumption, because of the reduction of energy we need for heating and cooling, and other environmental good effect. Just to conclude in a few seconds, I would like to show you the green roof we have over the laboratories at the engineering school in Bologna, and we are able to measure all performances thanks to the weather station we have. So we are able to compare all data in relation with the weather conditions, the air conditions, and the building conditions. Yes, for sure, in relation with the capability of the green roof to absorb rainfall water, here you have a comparison between the roof that is represented by the black line, and the green roof behavior represented by the green areas. In relation with a certainly rainfall water event, you can see that immediately after the rain fall water, the gray roof is responding with the same amount of water as surface runoff. On the contrary, the green roof is able to absorb water and to release water during the time. and talking about the island effect and the temperature that are present over a roof where both green roof and gray roof are present. Here you have the temperature we measured thanks to a thermography. Thanks to a thermography camera, on the green roof, not more than 35 Celsius degrees during summertime. At the contrary, on the gray roof, you reach more than 50 Celsius degrees until 60, 65, and so on. And that is the reason why we can say that thanks to a green roof, we are able to reduce the overheating at the building level and at the urban level as well. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. We will, as I said before, we will keep the questions for later. We move on towards the next presentation then. Professor Mohsen, I will share my screen to help you with your presentation. Turn off my microphone and camera. So if you want to give a short presentation about yourself, please go ahead. I mean, while I prepare the presentation.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here for the second time in Urban Farm. Do you hear me clearly, or?
Yes, we hear perfectly. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation to be a speaker for the Student Rendezvous for Urban Farm 2022. I would like to thank first Professor Orsini for inviting me and his team. It's a great pleasure to be with you tonight, and also with the students. I'm Professor Abu Naga. I'm Professor of Sustainable Built Environment at the Department of Architecture here in Cairo University, Egypt. I'm also international expert with the European Union for policy strategy and policy planning. I participated in many projects. I'm also associate member of the European Sustainable Development Network in Austria. I'm also collaborated with the University of Bologna and also many other institutions. I write 4 books on urban climate change, resilience of informal areas in developing countries, also on biomimicry architecture. My 4th book, which will be in the pipeline soon, will be covering the topic that Professor Alessandra introduced about urban heat island effect. My presentation today will be basically about the issue of integrating agriculture into sustainable urban sustainable design and landscape to attain sustainable development goals. How can city be resilient in the age of COVID-19 crisis? Thanks to Professor Alessandra, because she brought some of the nostalgia back in 2005. She presented the green building in Hyderabad. I was honored to be among the guests who opened, high-level guests who opened this building in 2005. Among them, the President of India, the President of the World Green Building Council. At that time, I was a member of the council, and it was a great experience to open the first platinum green building outside the United States in 2005. So next, Michaela. Michaela, do you hear me? Michaela, can you please?
Yes,
okay.
yes. Can you see?
No, there is one slide before that.
Okay, maybe it's not in sync.
Yes. I'm sure all of you actually heard about COP26 that was held in Glasgow between 31st of October and 15th of November. And the outcome of this was called Glasgow Climate Pact. In summary, it's highlighting climate neutrality, net zero buildings, green and clean transport, and then net zero cities. Next. So basically, among this part of the Glasgow Climate Pact, it actually indicated that the whole world should hold the increase in global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. In addition to, recognize that limiting global warming, as Professor Alessandra mentioned, to 1.5 degrees Celsius. That entails rapid, deep, sustained reduction in global greenhouse gas emissions. Your project that you are all involved in Urban Farm 2022, basically address all of this and contribute to actually this as well. Next. In addition, the Glasgow Climate Pact highlighted mitigation of global carbon dioxide emission by 45% by 2030. So in about 9 years from now, the whole world should bring the carbon dioxide by half almost relative to 2010 level to the net zero by 2050. We're not far. Time is flying. Next. So the buzzword is how to create net zero building, net zero transport, net zero cities. That's a very difficult equation. I don't think the world will be able to do that because trillions of dollars are needed to reach net zero cities worldwide. Next. Our presentation today highlight the concept and innovation, how the students can actually address the concept and innovation architecture design of the competition, also the architecture quality, green tech transformations, also functionality, novelty, and livability. Not only that, but also highlighting the site studies, urban viability, integrating architectural solutions, as well as structure and sustainable material. Next. So in terms of concept and innovation, you need to look at a sustainable and creative project. How you can do that? That will be illustrated in 2 things. In your concept design, and second is the innovation. You need to create innovation. You don't need to think inside the box. You need to think outside the box in different 360 angles, everything. So you need to focus on this. Next. In terms of that, you need to understand what is innovation and what is open innovation. All the team that working in this project should work in open innovation through workshops, discussing being an academic, being an expert. Also look at how the municipality will contribute to your thinking. You can ask them questions. Also the NGOs, how they can help in promoting urban farming in your selected site. And also the co-creator, how are you going to do the marketing and also the economic part of the project, how that will be done. This is a very big, important issues. Next. So open innovation and innovation are tools to drive cities towards innovation economy and innovation districts. Yet, key building blocks for long-term sustainable growth and developing smart cities. That will be through vibrant, innovative ecosystem. You have to look at the ecosystem in the site, how you're going to develop that. And also using deep talents pools within the cities. You look at for example, institution. I remember in 2019, some of the students went to the Vine college and integrate them into the design and they learn from it. So you need to look at the deep talents within your cities, how you can involve them. And also that's not limited to deep talent, but also to stakeholders' involvements. And of course, you need to look at governance to achieve that. Next. So open innovation basically is an innovation city that is geographical space with nurturing regional conditions and resources that empower governments, citizens, entrepreneurs, policymakers, academicians, and bankers. Because at certain part of your project, you need to look at how are we going to finance this project with limited budget, how are you going to do a feasibility study, and you need to understand banking as well to that. So a group who has bankers or financial background students will be actually an added value, who have the proper relationships and capabilities to constantly look for the opportunity and value opportunity. how would your project basically and your team make the selected site, building, new project, and people part of such innovation and smart city? You need to focus on how your project will be a key player in making the city smart, whether in public transport or building or social activities or economic activities. So that's a big issue. Next. So basically, I will look at your project concept should showcase innovation, innovative ideas based on the context and the surrounding. So that would be done through developing an innovative ideas. That's very important because of the grading, whether in the scientific committee or us. When you come to us as an international jury member, we'll ask you about how you innovation is part of your idea. Then you have to look at how your project is integrated with the community and the concept and innovation design. Also the surrounding and context, the site and urban areas and the region and the city as well. So you need to focus on that. You need to understand also the challenges that Professor Alessandra have highlighted in terms of climate change and also mainly, next, please. Whether, city worldwide now facing nowadays economic, social, environmental challenges, as well as rapid population increase, not part of Europe, for example, increased scarce resources, and climate change. In addition to the horrible COVID-19 pandemic, which is now becoming a crisis for the whole world. So you need to look at the economic challenge, social challenge, environmental challenge, rapid population challenge. If the population will increase in the city, how are you going to accommodate that in your project? You can get data from the municipality and then based on that in the future expansion. Also, Professor Alessandra highlighted how you can manage the water, waste, and heat temperature and resources material, the construction material, and then water, food, and also other things. Next. So in addition to that, you have climate change, all the challenges, plus the two major red one, climate change and COVID-19. You need to address COVID-19 in your design as well. How you allow visitors and users of the building to look at that in your design for touches, social distances, spacing, flexible design, partitions, and so forth. Next. So in terms of concept, how? You need to integrate the current potentials of your site, building site, network, possible services, history of the site, community needs as well. Research your site thoroughly to allow the site influential your concept in order to re-energize people as well. Mention your goal and objective clearly in your concept. Also add sketches, preferably hand sketches. If you have some talented students in your group, try to do that to display the concept and development well. And finally, make sure that the concept unites and is visibly in all your sections, whether in agriculture, social, and architecture. Also, in terms of how, can you next slide, please? Also need to integrate the current potential of the site through the site, existing building. You have to look at the existing buildings, whether it's one building or more buildings, and also how to benefit from these blocks. Also look at the site history, linkage with the future, the relationship between the site and neighborhood, and the district and region at large, and also the city, and finally, integrate that into the citizens. Next, also research your site thoroughly and allow for the influential the concept by examining the direction of the site and buildings, urban setting, transportation network around the site, how people will reach out and reach in, and then important landmark sites, institution, buildings that could influence your project, as well as nearby schools and colleges, shops, restaurants, and all nearby services, because you need to integrate your project because you can provide food, fresh food to schools, colleges, can actually get how your product would be sold to the shops and restaurants around you, and other services. Next. Also, you need to think about the approach. Thinking approach is vital. reflecting such goal in an objective in the storytelling, in your way of as a storytelling, and depicting these objectives in the layout plans and facades and section, as well as 3D images. Finally, making a journey for the visitor through the project using mobile apps, virtual reality, and augmented reality as well. Next. Also make sure that the concept unite the visible, whether agriculture, social, architecture, and economically, financially viable by integrating urban farming and rooftop gardens into the building roof and on the site through green roof, green walls, outside landscape, as Dr. Alessandra focused largely on this section, selecting the vegetables, that's very important, and herbs and fruits that are mostly used and part of the city cultural and eating style. Don't pick any type of vegetables and fruit. You need to look at the city, what the people eat, what they prefer, so that will be economically viable. Next. In terms of the second point, I'll highlight the architecture quality and green transformation. In your project, you should create an architectural design aesthetically and appealing and also viable and vibrant, yet it should be exhibiting the interwoven relationship between the surrounding urban environments, not only one environment, all the environments, and above all, a sustainable model. In order to do that, you need to understand the sustainability concept. Next slide. You need to look at the developing cities and buildings should be in the context of sustainable development and the sustainable development goals. Normally, for the sustainable development, it has 3 pillars: environmental, economic, and social. The EU added the cultural dimension as number 4, and also the 6-dimensional. Next slide, please. So you look at the 6 dimensions, which are the livable dimension, the viable dimension, the equitable dimension, which is the relation between the social and economic, whereas the livable, which is the quality of life, integration, ability of the environment to sustain the economic, the social needs of the society and the city as well, and the viable, the ability of the environmental ecosystem to withstand economical development. That's very important to address in your project and to exhibit that in your report and your concept. Next slide. Also, you have to look at which sustainable development goals your project is tackling and contributing to. In order to understand this, next slide, please. There are 10 SDGs related to green buildings and cities. That's number 4, education, quality of water, affordable clean energy, decent work, because you're going to create many jobs in your project in terms of operation and budgeting. Also, industrial innovation and infrastructure. Your project will be part of the infrastructure of Bologna or Sweden. Not only that, sustainable cities and community, and responsible consumption and production, how your production will be equal to the consumption, or even the production is higher than the consumption, in terms of energy and water, in terms of food production, and agriculture as well, horticulture and urban farming. Also, how your project will contribute to climate action, and life on land, and finally, partnership. Next slide. So you need to understand the more relevant SDG to cities. For example, affordable clean energy, industrial innovation and infrastructure, SDG number 11, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, and climate action. Those are the most relevant ones. So you need to highlight that by sketches, how your project actually, architecture solution and green transformation was are able to exhibit all these issues. Next. For the architecture quality, how are you going to do that? Integrate your agricultural solution into innovative and attractive ways. Pay extra attention to drawings, because some of the projects failed in terms of drawing, and that affect their grades and marking. Make sure that you convey the placement relations Also add solution to the boundary and show circulation within the site and preference. Estimate any renovation cost. Find ways to cut them. Inexpensive, economically viable, and financially viable. Remember these terms. Make sure that your concept is completely present in your solutions. Always make a checklist that your concept is completely presented in every solution. If this is not, you do mention them in the concept. Next. In terms of point number 3, functionality, novelty, and livability, in your project, you should present new functions responding to the current problems. You have problems and you have function. How to integrate and relate these functions to the problems. That's very important. And how you solve them. Also create flawless, efficient circulation. And you need to think deeply in how you can create efficient circulation, effective circulations in the age of COVID-19. And manifest vibrant human spaces. That's very important, especially in COVID-19. And to achieve livability, which is quality of life. You need to think about new function, current problems, create flawless and efficient circulations, vibrant human spaces that will contribute to livability. Next. How are you going to do that? Respond to needs of community. You have to look at the needs of the community. You can get the data from the municipality by be the missing piece. Do not hesitate to initiate activities within your project, periodical or permanent. Think beyond the circulation of people only. Consider the circulation of the material within your project as well, because that will cut the embodied energy used for transportation for long distance. Make sure that your circulation is adequate, flawless, and pleasant throughout the whole project, whether inside, indoor, or outdoor. Also think about the all dimension of your solution. To achieve function, do you need storage space? Think about that also for future expansion. Develop the project to be fully functional, meet future needs, and consider expansion and to attain sustainability. Next. Functionality and novelty, you look in your project, you have to look at new function, as I mentioned. That's an example of livability of one of the winners of 2019. They created interactive green walls where people can actually learn from the mobile application and get to know how these are operated, how they are cultivated, percentage of production, type of greenery, type of plants and herbs and everything. And also look at the way they develop the skylights to allow for daylight in to save energy. And it's a pleasant space. Next. Also, in terms of the layout, they created an interaction between the visitor users with the whole space. Artwork is being done in the basement, and the artist can see the light tube impinging on their drawing, and people can enjoy that from the top while walking in the green areas and urban farms. Next. In terms of the point number 4, site and urban viability, your project should develop and make site and buildings to be well planned and integrated and generative to create viability. Viability means economic part, the ability of the environment to withstand economic development. How your site will able to withstand the economic development of your developed site. How are you going to do that? Next slide, please, Michael. Encourage integration between the site and its boundaries. Consider the accessibility to the site. That's very important. One of the projects that we evaluated as an international jury in 2020 failed because they have only one access. And during COVID, cannot have one access of the site. Fully implement the project and its surrounding features. Make sure that your solution is contextual and cannot be removed and placed anywhere else. You can have your project as a flexible construction also. Carry out to show extensive analysis on the macro and the micro scale to justify your decisions and better explain relations of your solutions. Next. Point number 5, basically, it's about integrating architectural solutions. In your project, you should create architectural design that basically illustrate and depicts and exploits green and smart technologies, as Professor Alessandra mentioned in her presentation a while ago today, to solve the existing site problems, city problems at large, and also above all, you make sure that your site is resilient amid COVID-19 crisis, as well as climate change, and how you bring about climate neutrality in your design. That will be, in summary, integrated design. To do that, you need to think about the integrated design solution. You can search about it. They have 6 dimensions. Your building site to be socially viable. Building mass, that's for the integrated design solution. Building mass, daylighting, lighting, ventilation, envelope design, HVAC, and comfort, thermal comfort. All this has to be addressed in your project. Also, smart and green resilience of your project. Next slide. How are we going to do that? Apply smart, innovative solutions. Also relevant to your design and site layout. The design smart solution should not be limited to the building, but also to the site at large. Make sure that your technologies are not expensive because you have limited budget and funds without real outcomes and proof. You need to highlight the proof where you have done that. Consider the small details that affect your solution and use analysis of the area to prove them. You need to prove your analysis. Concept proof. Always choose new innovative technologies that save costs and consider the energy consumption, water consumption, and suggest how it will be covered by smart solutions. Next, the last point is structure and sustainable material. In your project, you should basically develop and make sure that your proposed structural system of upgraded buildings and site are viable, economically viable, financially viable. All material use must be efficient, green, and recycled material as much as possible, yet depict the 6th dimension of sustainability. To do that, you need to focus on structure system. Some projects in the previous year did not highlight how they done the structure and the material. They failed to do details about that. Your site, buildings, 1 or 2 or more, it depends on your site, to attain sustainability. And that will enable you to create viable, green, efficient structure. How are you going to do that? Next slide, please. Calculate the carbon emission from your material through the embodied energy model. Initiate material or technology that cut them, because you might have high energy, so you need to cut them down. Make sure that your structure strengthens the features or even reflection of your concept. Do not mix structure that not fit your concept. Take cost into consideration when you think about the structure. Material are not exclusive to the building stage. Think about the operation as well. And finally, use reusable and recyclable material when possible. That's an added value because of most of the project that won the competition the previous 3 years highlighted the reusable material and recyclable material. That are some of the examples in terms of structure material. You see all the material are actually used in this project were recycled material and reusable material. And again, viable structure material and recycled material inside the spaces and outside the spaces. Next slide, please. That's an example also from the winners of previous years. And next slide. I think I covered all the points that the students will be needed to create innovative solution that will achieve equitability, livability, and viability, and to address the Sustainable Development Goals. With this, I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mohsen. Thank you. As usual, it's a masterclass on architecture design and the procedure to develop architectural projects. Thank you very much. Now we can go through the questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand on the app so that I can give you the word, and you can ask the questions to our professors and guests today. Okay, I don't see any questions from the audience right now. Let's see if we can break the ice a little bit. So I have a question from Professor Bonoli for the first presentation. So Professor, you talked about urban islands, which is a really warm topic, hot topic nowadays. And I was curious to know more about, for example, the capacity of rooftop greenhouses to mitigate the urban heat island. Do they mitigate it? Do they increase the warmth of the urban areas, or how do they behave, considering that we have, for example, hydroponic production in it? No, if Professor Bond is...
Sorry, thank you very much for your question. Okay, if you have a green surface everywhere, you can assume that there is a valid contribution to reduce the heat island effect, because the green surface represent an excellent option at the contrary, the gray one surface is not so efficient. So the gray surface reaches a higher temperature. Talking about greenhouses, that is the question. Yes, I think if it depends. We have to look at the temperature on the surface of the greenhouse. I don't know if you have a sort of glass behaviors in a certain way, so you have to assume that there is a contribution to the heating of the atmosphere. At the contrary, the good solution is that the green surface is able to absorb in a certain way the heating. So we have to measure. I really don't know about a greenhouse if you have just a glass on the covering. At the contrary, you can cover with some, why not, some plants or another kind of color on the surface. The albedo could be also reduced thanks to the presence of a painter, not exactly gray or transparent, but for instance, white and green.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your question. So, of course, I think when there's a need to design rooftop greenhouses, it is a good thing to consider. Also maybe the integration of a landscape rooftop design together with rooftop greenhouses.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Mosen, do you want to add something?
Yes, I think I would like to highlight one of the things that is very important during COVID-19. For example, in Japan, they opened the gate for the trains, the gate for the underground metro, the buses by the mobile phone, by QR code. Mm-hmm. So I think in your design, most of the students who are actually hearing us tonight can also think deeply how they can get into the project from the site to the building to the spaces without touching anything on the wall, because touching the wall might spread the virus if someone is infected. So you need to have wireless. You can use your mobile to open everything by your mobile phone applications. So that could be a concept to overcome the challenge of COVID-19 in terms of architecture and also the site.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. Remember also you you did also make a lesson last year about accessibility to the buildings in the era of COVID. I think the topic of accessibility is really important. Also, when we're talking about urban agriculture, because probably we would need more accesses, one from the public and also one from the workers who work, for example, in the greenhouse.
Exactly. Because I mentioned in my presentation that one of the projects of 2020 or 2021, I'm not sure. When they come to the final stage, pre-qualification to the finale, we were 7 jurors evaluating the projects, and one of the projects failed because they have one access. And we told them, how are you going to allow everyone congested in one access during COVID-19? And they did not answer the question.
Yeah.
And they were disqualified.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really important. So it's about accesses and also I think about paths, right? So like the path that you can design your building and differentiate the different areas of the building.
I think if they consider all the points mentioned by Professor Bonoli and Alessandra Bonoli and myself, I think they were going to do well.
Yes.
Provided that's in terms of architecture solution. But the project is only architecture solution. It's about economic solutions, feasibility studies, marketing, operational, productivity, production of urban farming products, food, herbs, fruits, how they're going to create jobs, what kind of jobs, and the sustainability of jobs, and then the phases of the financial operation of the project. Phase 1, phase 2, when the project will start, how much will cost, how many people needed for the operation, and then when the project in the middle to soft opening, after the soft opening, how this will be done. Also, the social dimension is very important, how they're going to bring the city, the project as a hub for the city, socially, culturally, and economically. That's very important. And above all, they have to exhibit in their design how the project is resilient to withstand shocks. If it's the whole site is completely full of snow, how people will access the site and operation of the site. How the site will be resilient, that's very important. That should be seen by solutions, not by talking.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So I think we've reached our time. It's been one very pleasure hours with you both, Professor Bonoli and Professor Abulnaga.
Thank you very much
for having accepted our invitation, and see you. Of course, all the students can see the two presentation over and over again on the laptop as they can download it. So thank you again very much. I'll see you all on Monday.
Thank you, Michaela, for moderating the session. Thank you, Lisa, for coordinating the whole rendezvous and the UrbanFarm22. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and see you later, and ciao.
Ciao. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
Yeah.